TikTok kind of trains you if you're using it in a way that you're trying to get your videos seen. You start to pick up on things like trends and things like videos that all sort of follow a particular similar theme. So you'll see something and you'll be like, oh, that's a trend I could hop on. And you'll immediately go and you'll make your own version of that video to jump on this trend.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
Liz Shipton.
Yes, we do. Y'all, it's such a fun interview. And Liz is so funny. We talk about her TikTok virality. Is that a word?
It is now, yeah.
It is now. According to Jamie, it is. And yeah, it's just, she's hilarious in those videos. And so, yeah.
Yeah, she had a TikTok go viral, and we talked about what she wished she'd known about that.
Yeah, I mean, she's had many go viral, but yeah, it really sort of set her on a track, and she got an agent out of it. She's gotten a book deal. Yeah, it's really kind of amazing.
Yeah, and she's I guess a digital nomad was what the term she moves.
A seaworthy digital nomad.
Yes. So we talked to her about that, and she said that has actually freed up more time for her to do her writing, and talked to her about how they came to do that and tips and stuff she has for that. And then the other interesting thing was she writes two versions of her books, one for a new adult audience and one for a YA audience. And then she sells the YA direct on her website. So we get into that. So just really interesting topics that we don't normally get into, some of them. So it's really good.
It was good. So what's been going on with you?
Well, first we should say quickly that this week the sponsor is Zero.
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So we'll tell you more about that later, but you can use discount code Wish I'd Known Then 20 and get 20% off a Zero subscription for 3 months. And I don't have a whole lot of new stuff to talk about because we recorded an intro
a few days
recently.
Yeah.
So I'm still in the mountains, still enjoying the mountains. I guess I could say I'm refilling my well because that's like all I'm doing. I'm hiking.
That's great.
It's really nice.
I know. I'm really jealous.
Yeah, it's pretty nice here. So did some hikes yesterday, exhausted, and then, have to recover from that. So that's about it. Done a little writing, some podcast interviews, and that is about it for me. What about you?
I'm getting over being sick, but I'm better, and I'm in a better headspace. Not great, but still better. I mean, when you're sick, everything feels
worse. Yeah,
it just feels worse. And I'm sorry. We recorded on the wrong day last time. But I mean, all of that's true. I do feel that way. I just, but I am thinking about some things and thinking about ways to fill my well. And I've been getting up and getting dressed, putting makeup on, fixing my hair, which does make me feel better. The only problem with that is I feel like I need to go someplace when I do that. I need
that
people
means
to see me.
And then you got to spend money or something. That's what we always end up doing. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Anyway, but that's about it. I did have a Zoom call this morning with Shell Honecker because I am doing a Wish I'd Known Then panel at Author Nation, and we were talking about who's to be on the panel. And Sarah will not be there because she will be on a cruise in the Mediterranean.
Yes,
whatever.
I will miss y'all. Y'all would have been my first choice, right?
Yeah,
right.
If your husband hadn't made you go on a cruise.
That's right. Mediterranean cruise.
Right.
Author conference,
In Vegas. But anyway, it's going to be fun. And I am excited for the conference. I I know there's some mixed feelings about that conference in general, what it used to be, what it is now. But I am willing to give them a chance to and to do some good stuff. And I really think they're going to. And so if you're going, let me know and we'll try to get together. That would be really fun.
And we've had
maybe we could all meet at the blackjack table and I could buy you a drink because, drinks are free at the blackjack table.
It's a good plan. It's a good plan. I was going to say, we've had Joe Solari on the podcast talking about Author Nation. So if anybody's interested and wants to learn more about it, I'll put a link to that in the notes.
That'll be great. And right now I have Tony Lee. He's a very high level author and he has some movie deals and things like that. Wow. And then Honey Phillips, who is a monster romance powerhouse, 7-figure author. She's amazing. And I tried to get people we haven't had on the podcast so that we could and then we may have them on the podcast, but just because, just to get some fresh perspective and stuff. So I'm excited about it. So
I think that
if you're going or if you're on the fence about going, maybe you come and see me and learn some stuff, not necessarily from me, but from a lot of really smart people. So
sounds good. Sounds like a good time. So, So
that's all I have.
Okay, we don't have anything to add to that, so that sounds good. We do have a new supporter this week.
Yay! Thank you.
Yeah, so we have Angela Woods, and she chose the unicorn emoji. So thank you, Angela. Yeah, and thanks to all the continuing supporters. We are really thankful for y'all, and you guys pay for our time and kind of help us keep this going. And then we have a corporate sponsor. The Zero Accounting is our corporate sponsor for this week, and they kind of help keep the lights on, as Jamie said one time. I think that's a good covering all the basic costs of doing a podcast. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. The corporate sponsor today is Zero Accounting Software for small businesses like indie authors. With Zero, you have everything in one place. You can store documents, capture expenses and receipts via email, scan files from your mobile, and more. With Zero's robust integrations, you can connect Zero to your bank to easily sync financial information, as well as have access to more than 1,000 apps in its app store. And there are different plans to suit your business, and all pricing plans cover the accounting essentials with room to grow. And I've been using Zero, I think since the beginning of the year. I've really enjoyed it. It's easy to use. That's not a word I usually use with accounting stuff. It's enjoy. So it makes it really easy. It imports the transactions, and they had an onboarding call. So if I had any questions, I could talk to a real human being. And it's just been a great accounting solution for my indie author business.
Great.
So you can use discount code WishI'dKnownThen20 and get 20% off a Zero subscription for 3 months. And the link will be in the show notes.
Yeah. And we just want to thank them for sponsoring the podcast. That it means a lot. And it really does help a great deal. So we appreciate it.
They've been our sponsor all summer. So big shout out to them.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So I guess we should get on with the interview with Liz.
Yeah, we should.
All right. Here is Liz. Well, today we are really excited to talk to Liz Shipton. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
We are great, and we're so happy you're here.
Well, me too.
Liz Shipton is a freelance writer, hybrid author, and full-time off-grid liveaboard sailor. She's currently sailing around the world with her boyfriend and dog, turning her real-life adventures into speculative fiction books.
That's so amazing. And I just asked her before we got on, is Shipton your real name? And she said yes. I'm still questioning it, but
no, I can prove it. I mean, so it's kind of funny.
I can prove it.
I'll show you my driver's license. My dad's last name is Shipton, and he spent most of his career working offshore on boats as
really?
well. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Kind of funny. Yeah,
that is very funny.
Well, it was meant to be, I guess.
Right.
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, tell us, how did you get into writing?
So I actually pretty much, I wrote as a kid. I'd say like the first thing that were, in like first grade or whatever, writing through I used to write stories and that kind of thing. And then I kind of went away from it during high school and after high school, got more into music and was writing a lot of music for a long time. So I had bands and actually have a degree in music. And so I was composing and writing lyrics. And I think that's kind of maybe where all that energy was being channeled.
Yeah.
And then when we decided to pursue this trip or lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, on the boat, as we were planning for it, I kind of realized that this lifestyle would allow me like a lot of time to kind of explore some new avenues of work. And I sort of, I've always wanted to try writing again. I've always wanted to write more, and I might as well just like take this opportunity. So kind of just threw myself into it and figured, if there's ever a time for it, it's going to be now. So that was around 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago at this point, that I started like really writing seriously. Kind of came back to it, and
That's amazing. And we should say you're in Grenada at the moment. So
yes, currently I am in Grenada, in Caribbean. So I mean, I guess a little bit of background on the boat stuff. We left California in September of 2021, and we sailed down the Pacific coast of the U.S., through Mexico, through Central America. We came through the Panama Canal at the beginning of last year, and then we've been in the Caribbean since then.
Yeah. So I think this is fascinating. We're going to talk more about that and how that's kind of helped you, that lifestyle has helped you pursue writing. But before we get to that, what is your definition of success?
That's such a great question. I think right now, my definition of like what success would be for me would be to be supported completely by my fiction work. Right now, my income is a mix of fiction and freelance writing. So I think, to have a life where I get to write every day and where that work is supporting me, that would be great. Obviously, in my secret heart of hearts, I want my books to be made into a movie that wins a bunch of Oscars, but that's like my unrealistic dream version of success.
That may be realistic. Who knows? You got a great story, so
it might happen.
Yeah. Well, what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft when you started?
One of the things I think about, I don't know if this is necessarily so much about craft as it is about just like maybe more like marketing and how to approach authoring. I do kind of wish that I had not written a full 9-book series based on the first thing that I ever wrote, because now I kind of have to promote that book because it's the beginning. It's like the entry point to the series, and it's fine, but it's not great.
It's
and
not
some
the
of
best.
some of the books later in the series, like the one I'm working on now, which is actually the last book in kind of the main part of the series, is so much better. And I'm like, well, no one's going to read this because they're not going to get there, because they're going to read book 1 and be like, no, this isn't that good. And then, so I do wish that I had maybe just like written a couple of like, I don't know, practice books and thrown them away and not now have to be promoting the very first book I ever read as like, here, go check out this one.
Yeah.
But hopefully that will be rectified soon. Yeah.
Because it's the first book in the series. That's like the issue with writing the long series is sometimes you get better as you go along. And then the question is, do you go back and rewrite the first series, but that first book in the series, but that's a lot of work. And so sometimes it's better.
Well, I have actually done that. I am sort of guilty of being like just a nitpicker and like perfectionist. And so I have actually gone back and rewritten this book a couple of times, like re-edited and done pretty large rewrites actually, but compared to what it was when it was very first completed. It's gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, no, I just got to leave it. I just got to let it go and move on. It's a lot better than it was when I very first wrote it, but it's still not, there's problems with it that like just being better at sentence level craft and things like that aren't going to fix. So I probably should have, what I should have done is let the original trilogy just be a trilogy and then started something new.
Starting something
But
different. Yeah. That's a
yeah,
good idea too. Yeah.
I kind of thought, I think like at the time when I was looking, I was trying to decide, okay, do I start a new series after book
Right.
3 was done? Or do I keep going with this series? And I think at the time I kind of thought like, well, it's more likely that people are going to continue reading rather than that they're going to go and look up something else that I've done. So it's kind of I don't know, it's like a weird equation to sort of try and work out. It's like, is it better to start something new and have people maybe not go and look for it? Or is it better to just keep going in something that people are already reading and maybe they're going to be more likely to keep reading that? Now, I don't know. I don't have a great answer, but
I don't either. And I think it's a really good question, though. And I think that it's something that we should all think about, though. And like, especially new authors, if they, think about that as far as doing a very short series with their first thing. And then once they're better at their craft, better at knowing the market, better at knowing the genre expectations, then move into something else. That is a good thought. But then what you did makes sense too, because you have something established and those readers will keep reading,
Yeah. And I mean, the people who like it really like it and get into the series, and they love that there's so many books in this like whole world that they can explore. So I'd say it's very much like, if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, then it's just not for you. But like, it took me until probably like book 3 to really know what I was doing. So yeah, I guess if I had any advice, it'd be like, write 3 books and then start promoting the next one you write.
Very good.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Because it is kind of, and I think too, it depends on genre, because like in the mystery genre that I write in, and especially cozy or lighter, people expect those series to go on forever. So if you wrote 3 books and you're done, people would be like, where's the rest?
Oh yeah.
So it kind of depends on genre too, I think.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I did that was really ill-advised and terrible was like, I didn't really write to market or like pick a real like genre that makes sense. So I started writing a dystopian series, which is like, just, I knew it doesn't sell. I knew all of this going into it. And I was like, no, I'm going to be the exception.
One. Yeah.
I'm going to be the one that changes things, which is just so stupid.
But we've all done it, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess it's going better than I thought, mostly because probably of the success that I've then had on TikTok, which is like, I kind of was like, well, I'm just going to write something that I want, and I'm going to force everyone else to read it, which is going honestly better than it probably should be.
You're going to pull them in. Yeah. Well, what about marketing? Since you mentioned TikTok, is there anything you wish you'd known about marketing?
I would say I still am playing around with like Facebook and Amazon ads to some extent, mostly finding that they don't really work for me because my books are like a little bit weird and don't fit into necessarily like a totally expected genre. So I would say, and I think I started doing that probably way too early. I think really having like 9 books or 2 series out is like a great place to start playing with ads. And probably before that, it's really just not going to be worth it at all, because they are so expensive to test and figure out, even if they're going to work for you, first of all. And then if they do, to figure out how to make them work for you, like it just costs money, and that money, I guess, like you're just not gonna really get it back unless you have a pretty substantial like backlist, I think, to promote. I think I probably started trying to see if they worked around like book 3, which maybe you can do, but also they just kind of don't really work for me. So yeah,
ads are tricky. They're really tricky. Yeah.
Do you guys run ads?
I do.
Yeah.
And it's hit or miss. Facebook ads made my career, or when I started. The second year that I was publishing, I changed from Amazon ads to Facebook ads, and literally just changed everything. I mean, I was doing well before that, but things have changed. That was in 2018. And when I started running them, but now I find they're just harder to make profitable, and used to, I knew if I spent this much money, if I spent this much money, I would make this much money. And that's not the case anymore. Just not the case for me. So anyway, I still do them because it's what I know. Amazon ads have never really worked for me well since 2018. And I've had other people run them for me and they're like, yeah, I don't know why they're not working. They just don't work. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah, I kind of had that similar experience at the beginning of this year because I was like, obviously I'm very new to this and, it was like, okay, I have a little bit, like the books are earning a little bit. I'm going to invest some in getting someone to like teach me how to run these ads properly. And like, that'll fix the problem. And really all I found out was like, nope, they just don't work. So I got to just figure out something else, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, what assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
I think, I don't know, maybe it's going to sound terrible, but I think I assumed that people would care more about how well written things are. I don't actually think that people care that much about it, which like, it is probably the thing that drives me the most crazy about all of this is that like sentence level craft doesn't seem to matter at all. And then like, even in terms of like, I guess, okay, here's what I think maybe I thought was like, oh, something a little bit different and new and unique and interesting. People will totally go for that. No, they don't. People don't want like new and unique and different and interesting. They kind of want like similar versions of the same
what
things
they already
that they're
like.
already used to.
Yeah.
Which totally makes sense. But it's also very frustrating as a person who doesn't really want to do that. I don't have so much interest in just writing a different version of the fantasy romance story that's been done 1,000 times. So yeah, I don't know. It is frustrating. And again, another thing that I don't have any kind of good answer for. I'm just going to kind of keep going and see if one day my weird book,
Well, I think a lot of us have come to that same conclusion because I used to be so worried about plot and grammar and all these things, and people don't care. They want it to have a good plot, but that's not like their base thing that they're interested in. They're interested in the characters and the story, and it's just taken me a long time to figure that out as well. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
I just wish I could let go of the expectation that I write the very best book that I can write, because if I could let go of that, I might be able to write faster, but I can't. There's just something about me that, I mean, and people might read my books and go, honey, don't worry, you're fine. But for me, I want to make it the very best it can be with interesting sentences and interesting, I don't think people care. Not near as I care. So
yeah, it's such a, I mean, it's like this is always a thing, right? If you're doing something that's like creative, it's the balance between it being an art and a product.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And you just have to constantly reconcile that inside your own brain, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we have to get to where we're happy with it, the balance. And if we're not happy with it, then we have to keep working on it, I guess.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Well, what's the most important lesson you've learned?
Oh boy. Oh, okay. This is so cliche and so stupid, but you just have to write a lot, like all the time. People say write every day. And like, I'm at a point now where I do write every day just because like I am fortunate enough and I sort of set up my life in such a way that I can. But it's not like it's not a chore at all. Or it's like something that I have to do. I have a sickness that won't allow me not to do it anymore. But yeah, the only way that you're going to get better is by just writing a lot. Having done now like 9 books or whatever, I am in a place where I'm like, okay, I am getting better at this and I can do it faster and I can see, still there's a lot for me to learn, but I wouldn't have learned any of that if it wasn't just for writing and writing and writing. And I think like a lot of people will ask me like, oh, what books on craft do you recommend? Or, like, what can I read to make me a better writer? Like, you need to read in the genre and all that. And it is important, I think, that you read in your genre, especially if you're trying to meet genre expectations. But like, reading is not writing. You can only get so much from reading, and eventually you just have to do it. That's really the only way.
Yeah. What's the biggest change you've had to make in your thinking?
Probably just the same, that like kind of what I was talking about before, about how people don't care how good it is. And that people don't want new and different. So it's something I haven't changed my thinking about it yet. I'm still stubbornly trying to force the world to be the way that I want it. But I am kind of slowly coming to a place where I'm like, all right, I can see how this like isn't going to work. So that's kind of the biggest shift that I am trying to make currently.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, we like to ask everybody, if you were starting over, would you do anything differently? And we talked about like the books, like the number of books you might write in a series. Anything else on that?
I think that's the main thing. Yeah. Just like, it's funny. So the social media stuff, right? That kind of blew up in a way that I wasn't really expecting at the end of last year. And I think it has put my books in front of a lot of people that like, honestly, I kind of am like, I almost wish people hadn't read this, because now, I don't know, it's like such a double-edged sword, because the social media blowing up was what led me to sign with my agent and get a book deal, which like that book I'm super, super proud of and super psyched about. And I think it's a really good representation of my writing and what I can do. And it comes out next year. And I'm like, yes, I really want people to read this one. Now, everyone is already reading these ones. And I'm like, well, what if they read them and they don't think they're very good? And then they think that that's all I can do and they don't go and read the next one.
Well, they're not going to do that.
No,
let's not borrow trouble. I'm the one that does that, not you, Liz.
So I almost kind of forgot what the question was, but like, I kind of almost wish that, like I said, I had written more before I put stuff in front of people.
Right.
Yeah. So the book is coming out.
Go
next.
ahead.
Is that's in a totally different series, new series?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's exciting though. That's exciting. We're going to talk about your TikTok stuff in a minute, but I wanted to talk about, on your website, you have 2 versions of your books, a spicy, is it YA? And then a non-spicy YA and a spicy new adult. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So
it's the same book, though.
Yes.
Same story. Okay.
Two versions of the exact same series, basically. Why did I do
Yeah.
that? Such a great.
Tell us why.
So, okay. The series started out as the YA series. So when I first came back to writing, I think what I was remembering from my kind of reading experience in childhood and the books that I had loved was like the YA dystopian books. So like Hunger Games, Divergent, all that kind of stuff. And when I came back to writing, I was like, I want to write something like that. So those were the first things I wrote. I wrote basically the trilogy as a YA dystopian romance trilogy. And then I think I was like about halfway through writing it when I discovered ACOTAR and the whole spicy fantasy romance, new adult sort of genre. And I think I probably discovered it through Book Talk. Because I was starting to get into book talk. I was like, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know that this was a genre at this point. I did not know that like spice in books was a thing or that it was so huge or anything about that. I was just kind of poking around at TikTok because I had heard that it was good for marketing your books. Discovered ACOTAR, listened to it on audiobook, and kind of thought like, I wonder if I could do that. Or like, I wonder if this seems to be really popular on Book Talk. I wonder if I did it, A, would I be able to do it? And B, would anyone read it? And C, would it maybe help the books sell better? So it was all kind of like, very like experimentational. So basically what I did was went back and wrote some like bonus spice scenes for the original YA trilogy. And then I was going to release them through like a subscription platform like Patreon or something, like bonus content for people who, maybe were into that kind of thing. At that time, running a subscription platform and trying to publish all these books was just like too much. I was like, I can't do it. So I ended up just taking those bonus scenes, putting them in the books where they fit in the story, aging up the characters, because obviously in the YA version, the characters are like 17 and 19, and like that's not really okay to have like spicy scenes. A lot of people, don't like that. So I aged the characters up by a few years to put them in like the new adult category, which is I think technically what like things like ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, all those books are considered new adult. And then just re-released the series as a spicy new adult series.
Right.
And found that it immediately did much better on Book Talk because people on Book Talk love their spice. Yeah, I know, crazy, right?
They love their chili peppers. Yeah,
they do indeed. And I mean, it's not like I've had any kind of like amazing overnight success with books or anything like that. They definitely don't sell anywhere near as well as a lot of other new adult books or spicy books, but they do sell better than the young adult versions were selling for sure. And yeah, through this process, I've kind of learned a lot about myself as a writer and found that I enjoy writing it. I've gotten to a point now where I have written it so much, I am getting a little burned out on it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's been a really interesting experience. I don't think I would do it again, although actually, so I did talk to the publisher of my upcoming book that's coming out next year. That book is going to be a spicy new adult book, but I talked to them and was like, because at this point I actually do have now readers of both. So I talked to them about like, hey, would it be possible to release 2 versions of this? And for the ebook, we're going to be able to do that. So that's actually kind of cool.
That's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, it's like a be careful what you wish for maybe situation where now I'm going to have to write 2 of every book, which is not so bad. Like the books are basically the same. It's mostly just cutting out the spicy scenes, but then there is some writing you have to do around that to make it
because the spice should add to the story. I mean, it should be part of the story, not just something you gratuitously stick in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's interesting because I keep forgetting in Fourth Wing when I'm reading it, Fourth Wing and then the second one, that they are older. Like she's in her 20s because it was kind of cringy when I was reading the first one and I was like, ooh, and then I was like, oh, wait, she's older. Like, she's older. But because they're in an academy, I guess, that throws me off a little bit.
It's a very interesting genre to me because same thing, right? Like the book that I just finished, the manuscript I just finished, same deal. So the main character is like 24. So there's 2 male love interests. They're 26 and 25, I think.
Yeah.
And everyone around is sort of in their early to mid 20s. But yeah, they're at a community college. They're dealing with, like coming of age stuff. Yeah. But it's also, that is kind of what it is like to be in your early 20s, though, right? It's like you're not really sure if you're an adult or not, and it's weird, and so it's kind of perfect. But I do agree that like sometimes when you're reading it, I guess I kind of actually sometimes have the opposite issue where I'm like, these characters seem very old, or like it feels like it was written for a woman in her 30s, but these characters are like 20.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. If it's like, if it were young adult, because I know there are young adults with spice, there are young adults with spice, but to me, the spice seems pretty adventurous for,
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been that age in a long time, but I'm just saying.
Well, I think people will be curious about how you're selling. Like you have 2 versions, right? So do you have both versions on your store, right? And then only one version on Amazon? Is that how you're working it, or? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And do you market that at all?
So I did at first. I don't so much now. I think so. Recently, in the last like couple months, I have been very focused on like the TikTok and Instagram side of things. So like sort of making videos and all that kind of stuff. And my actual sort of like marketing of the books has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. So it's something I'm kind of coming back to. And finding ways to actually market like the YA series. So I was thinking I actually might try running some ads or something for specifically for the YA series, because I've only ever tried to run them for the spicy series. And then finding like promotions through FreeBooksy or whatever the sites that we all kind of use. I got very much like swept up in a lot of social media stuff recently, and so haven't been as on top of the marketing, but it's something I'm kind of coming back to now.
Okay. Well, tell us about the TikTok experience, like going viral, and how that happened, and how you approach TikTok as an author to promote your books.
First of all, they're hilarious. They're hilarious.
Oh, good.
so fun. Yeah.
Well, so yes, I have to give, first of all, and I always try to do this wherever and whenever I can, I have to give credit to the guy who actually came up with the style of that video that I do that kind of took off. It was not my original idea. It was something that I was scrolling TikTok one day and saw a video by this guy whose name is Jason Pinter. He is an author who's doing really well on TikTok. He actually just had a book picked up by Entangled called Dating and Dismemberment. It's a monster rom-com. I think he's been an author for quite some time. But anyway, I stumbled upon a video of his that was this setup of him sitting at the keyboard with the fingers and had a voiceover. And at that point, I'd been on TikTok for about a year, and I had maybe like 5,000 followers. And TikTok kind of trains you if you're using it in a way that you're trying to get your videos seen. You start to pick up on things like trends and things like videos that all sort of follow a particular like similar theme. So like you'll see something and you'll be like, oh, that's a trend I could hop on. And you'll immediately go and you'll kind of make your own version of that video to jump on this trend. So when I saw his video, I was like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I could make a version of that. So I just went and kind of made my own. I forget the first one I did, I think was like a YA. It was like women writing men in YA fantasy or something like that. And I posted it, honestly, not expecting much. And then like the next day it had 750,000 views or something. And I was like, oh no, because now like this guy's videos were already doing, like he had already gone viral with it and everything. But I was like, oh no, like I basically just stole this guy's idea and it kind of took off and I wasn't really expecting that. So like I reached out to him. He was super cool. He was like, no, this is great. Like, there's space for all of us, that kind of thing. Very, very cool about it. We ended up actually making a video together, which was super fun. And so then I kept making them and some more of them took off as well. And I think that was like probably around October of last year. And through that, just, books. Definitely people started finding me, people started reading my books. It definitely didn't have the same kind of success as like, had I posted videos that were specifically about my books and had those videos taken off, I think my sales would have gone like much higher. As it was, there are people who watch my videos who don't even know that I write books because you kind of have to go to my profile and find the link to get to the books and all that kind of stuff. So I always say like, my advice is like, go viral with your books, not your face, because although going viral with your face definitely helps. And like, I'm so incredibly grateful that it happened. It's definitely not the same in terms of sales as like had a video about my books gone viral. But so I ended up, my agent found me through those videos. She reached out to me actually via DM on TikTok. And that was something that I was pretty skeptical about at first because I had never heard of that happening. I didn't even know that agents did that. But I did my research on her and I talked to some of her other clients and chatted with her and she seemed very cool. So signed with her. That was a direct result of the videos. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of how everyone like knows me now, for better or worse. That is my legacy.
I know. I have a video that has 1 million views. Had 1 million views within a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
Not about my books. However, I have a book that directly relates to that video. Did I mention it? No. Then when I went back to try to do one with it, I'm sorry, my dog.
Didn't take off.
It never took.
Yeah. That's just, I mean, it's so frustrating about, like social media, because right now social media is basically really the only way that I am promoting my books. And it is so unpredictable. You just, you think you have an idea of what's going to be good. And I think now I kind of have a pretty good idea of like what's going to do fairly well. But in terms of it taking off and like going viral, you really just have no idea.
Yeah.
And so it's so hit or miss, and it's I don't recommend it as a marketing strategy.
But obviously you enjoy it, right? You enjoy it.
Well, that's the thing about it, is like I am really grateful that like what took off is something that I genuinely have so much fun writing and doing. Something that I kind of get to kind of express my frustration a little bit and poke a needle a little bit at these tropes and stuff, and the way that books are marketed nowadays, because I genuinely sort of do just sort of irk me a little bit. So I like that I can make these videos that I am expressing a little bit like of my real kind of frustration that like this is a thing. And that I just get to have like so much fun. It's great.
That's great. That's great. So tell us about your digital nomad lifestyle. I know you guys decided back in 21 to do this, but I mean, was it hard getting started? Was, what are the challenges? What are the pros, the cons, all of that?
Yeah. So the plan actually started a long time before 2021. I think we very first had the idea to do this back in probably 2015, maybe, or 2014. My boyfriend has sailed and was teaching sailing when we lived in San Diego together. He was teaching sailing at the aquatic center there, and he through that found some work as a skipper, doing some work overseas, sailing like in the summer in Croatia or whatever, and really fell in love with it. And that was around the time that we kind of started thinking like, well, maybe this could be a thing that we pursue. We also, coming from California, looking at the housing market there and how expensive the cost of living is, all that stuff, we were starting to talk about like, okay, are we really going to buy a house in Santa Cruz, California? Like, no, it seems insane.
We love our kidneys. We're not selling them.
Yeah, exactly. So we started talking then, and then it was a process. I mean, we spent 5 years basically saving up and working towards this before we even bought the boat. We were, both just saving money, planning for this, figuring out if it was going to be possible and all that. And so then, in 2021, we bought the boat actually in 2020 or 2019. And then set sail in 2021, and had a little bit of a cushion for like 6 months, maybe, where we were like, okay, we'll be figuring things out, and we're not going to be able to work. And then I started basically, so I had been a software engineer for the 5 years before that, and I started basically kind of parlaying my software skills into technical writing. So I was able to find a few clients writing basically just like technical blog content on software development and that kind of thing. And that was actually the first writing that I probably did coming back into all of this. And so, that's been mostly what's been supporting us for the last 3 years. And it wasn't really until the videos kind of took off that fiction started to make up a significant portion of my income.
That's great.
And now it's kind of a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Great. Is it hard, are your days mostly at sea, or are they mostly in port, or does it depend, or?
Mostly at anchor. So we anchor mostly wherever we go. We don't stay in marinas a lot just because they are fairly expensive. but yeah, we are at anchor most days. I'm writing. Trev's usually doing work on the boat or electrical work or fixing something. Something's always broken.
Always broken. Yeah, on a boat. Yeah.
Always. So there's that. We have a dog. We take the dog, we walk the dog, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's honestly fairly normal. We go to the grocery store. There's a grocery store very near here. It's a fairly normal life, except we're just like on the water and we take the dinghy to go to shore anytime we need to do anything. Unless we are on the move. So that first like 6 months, I guess, when we were coming down the California coast, that was a lot more movement. We were sailing probably every day or every other day, or doing multiple day stretches. But yeah, it really depends. Like right now, we're in Grenada because it's hurricane season, and we have to be far enough south that we don't get hit, which we actually almost did earlier this year. So we kind of have to hang out for usually like about 6 months, kind of waiting for hurricane season to pass. So we're in one place, like we'll be in Grenada until, probably November of this year. Yeah.
That's so cool. I think it's so interesting. And one thing you mentioned in your email to us is that sometimes authors try and figure out how they can make their author earnings, support their lifestyle. And so you said you kind of flipped it and you figured out how to make your lifestyle support being an author. So if there's somebody else who is thinking about that, we know there are people out there thinking about that. Would you have any advice for them about how to like change their thinking or what you need to do to make that switch?
Yeah.
Advice, I don't know. I would say, like, for me, a big part of the reason that I was interested in this lifestyle, because I knew that it would give me the freedom to do this, because it's a very cheap lifestyle. The cost of buying our boat was much, much, much lower than it would have been to buy a house. Our expenses are very minimal. We don't pay rent. We don't have a mortgage. We don't have car payments. We don't, most of our expenses are just like food, fuel for the boat, any repairs we have to make. And that's kind of it. So I'm able to support us on just my like freelancing and fiction income, which like would not be possible were we living in a house, in California or whatever.
Well, really anywhere. I mean,
it's all getting so just totally crazy. So, I mean, I don't know. I think, you could say like what I have done is pretty extreme. And a lot of people maybe don't have the freedom to just drop your whole life and go and be a digital nomad or whatever. But I think, also, we don't have kids. That was another factor in that reasoning for me. I wanted to be able to focus on this. I don't know, if you really are serious about it, kind of have to put it first above a lot of other things, which is what I have done. And I think the jury is still out on like whether ultimately that will be successful long term. But you have to make it a priority, I think, if it's really what you're going to do. Or at least I did. For me, that was true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense because you're changing everything. It may be some people can change smaller things and have.
Yeah. I think as low as you can get your costs and as simply as you can live. There's a lot of like tiny home movements and van lifing and all that kind of stuff that I think a lot of people are starting to do more and more now. I think it's a great like alternative lifestyle for an artist, for someone who really is like serious about their art.
Yeah, because we all say we want more time to write. So
yes,
that's like the goal, one of the goals. Yeah.
Very good. Well, we like to ask all our guests, what's the best thing you think you've done to set yourself up for success?
Yeah, I guess. Hang on. Sorry, my phone is ringing. Stop ringing. It won't stop. Oh, there we go. Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess probably just that, prioritizing this. And I think also trying to be realistic about what I think I can accomplish. Knowing my own brain and how it functions or doesn't function, and trying to set myself up in such a way that I can like use the way that my brain functions and doesn't function in a productive way. I think that's what I'm currently in the process of like doing to set myself up for success. And again, I've only been at this really like 2 years. So 2 years from now, it could be all wrong. And you could be like, well, she didn't know what she was talking about at all. And
that's fine. I think that's a great answer though. I think that.
Yeah. And you're doing it. You're in the middle of it. And for somebody who is at the beginning, it's great to hear from somebody who's already doing it. So I think that's good. So tell everybody where they can find out more about you and your books.
Yes. So my website, lizshipton.com, has links to everything pretty much, but you can find the spicy versions of my books in KU and then everywhere, basically, like all the online retailers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. The young adult, no spice versions you can only get from my website. So the ebooks and the paperbacks are available there. I also have another series of short stories that are all spicy and all pretty unhinged. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, go check those out. It's called the Holiday Remix series, and it's available in KU. And then, yeah, I'm on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I just started a YouTube. It's Liz Shipton, at Liz Shipton everywhere. And and I just started a Patreon yesterday.
You finally did that. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. So it's going pretty well. Some people are there hanging out, supporting, getting early advanced chapters of the stuff that I'm currently writing. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, it's patreon.com/Liz Shipton.
That's great. Perfect. And check out our social media. It is very entertaining.
All right. Well, thank you for being here today. And it's just been great talking to you and just a different perspective from what we usually hear. So it's been a lot of fun. And
thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And we will have all those links in the show notes, and that will be at wishidknownforwriters.com. And then if you want to support the podcast, you can go to that same link /support, and we'll just have all that there for you. And we'll see everybody next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.